Hey guys, yeah, I think that'll work. I've got. Hey guys, um, so what I'm going to do this morning is kind of once again show you a few of the things I have in my office and sort of tell the story behind them. I have all kinds of stuff in my office, and gosh, if I had thought of that, I mean, all kinds of nonsense in here. All right. Um, But the thing I want to go over today is this bag. Now, first of all, I love bags. I just adore them. So I have a bag here, I have two there, I have one there. I mean, I have bags all over the place. Um, and they all have meaning and they all have a purpose and so on. Now, this bag I got on Portobello Street in London, what, like 13, 14 years ago? Now, Portobello Street is an amazing place. I mean, it's wild. If you don't know about it, look it up. It's like a bohemian uh, bazaar, shops, stores, performers, you name it. And actually, when I lived in London and Oxford back when I was 13, 14, 15 years old during the summers, and I was in my punk stage then, yes, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. I used to go to Portobello all the time to buy punk gear. So I was all punked out, and that was back in the very early 80s. So it was the tail end of the punk era, but London was a great place to be a punk, let me just tell you. All right, so in any case, let's go ahead and talk about it. So we've got this bag, kind of cool, meant, I mean, it's not old, but it's meant to look like old World War II sort of military bag and so on. But you notice all the buttons. So let's talk. I'm going to get that out of the way. Let's talk about the buttons. Some of the buttons are very new. Some of them are very old. So Captain America, of course, new because it's Captain America. I love the Avengers. I love Cap. Yin Yang, all right. Speaking to my philosophy side, my theology side. Um, Thundercats. All right, Thundercats, ho. There's a lot of reasons I got kicked out of BYU when I was working on my bachelor's degree. One of which was I totally fell in love with this girl who is now my wife, and we totally skipped class and we just stayed home and watched Thundercats and Transformers and all those old cartoons, and they weren't old back then, they were the new things, right? So Thundercats is kind of near and dear to our heart. Um, okay, the city library bigger on the inside. All right, just kind of a reference to Doctor Who. The Watchmen, a fantastic, amazing comic book series. So far, the Thundercats is not old but not new. This is still kind of not old but not new. Batman, because Batman. Then we have Charlie Brown, just because it's cool. Now we've got a couple of really old ones. Another Batman, that's not a really old one. This Anarchy pin. This Anarchy pin and this Sex Pistols pin were both part of my original punk outfit. So back when I was, like I say, 13 years old, 14, I was heavy into the punk stage. And I had all the gear, I had the dyed hair, you name it, right? And the Anarchy pin and the Sex Pistols pin were part of my ensemble. As was the, Union Jack here. Another Batman. Bad Wolf, again, reference to Doctor Who. Peace, because peace. And then Gurr from Zim. I mean, if you don't know Zim, you have not yet lived. You gotta check out Zim, Space Invader. Wonder Woman, because yes, totally. Big fan of Wonder Woman. And I think, yeah, I'm a feminist at heart. We can talk about that later. Absolutely. And then this is my last one that, again, is very old. This goes back to my original punk ensemble, politically correct. Of course, the irony was, as a member of the punk movement, we were anything but politically correct. So to wear a pin that said politically correct, irony, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's this bag. So, I know, not too terribly interesting to you, but great for me. I don't really use this bag anymore. I just hang it in my office and have it back here so I can see it. It's more of just an objet d'art now. All right? So, thanks a lot, and let's get started. Let's get started indeed. Yes. Let's see, make that go bye-bye. Yeah, yes, indeed, Scott. I did say, now I saved all those buttons from when I was a punk. There was only 3 or so there, but back in those days, I had, a dozen, but, they get lost and so on and so forth and destroyed. It's not like they made high quality stuff, high quality pins for the punk movement 40 years ago. And yes, this was 40 years ago for me. But it's still fun to have that stuff around. Hey everyone, welcome. Great to have you aboard today. I need to stop saying this, but I just can't. I love this lecture. I love them all. I know I geek out every time, but I really love this one because this particular lecture kind of marks the end of an era of business thought and ushers in an opportunity that we'll discuss next week, a beginning of a new form of thinking. Okay? So what am I going on about? Well, what we're going to talk about is early religious thought toward business. Okay? As you've already kind of noticed, everyone, business has always been around and has always been around at the level of sophistication that it is today. We kind of have it on our minds that all those, traders and bartering folks in the early days, well, that's not sophisticated business, not like we have today. No. You folks now know better. You understand that the level of sophisticated business that we enjoy today, or have inflicted upon us, depending on your perspective, that level of sophistication has always been around, right? You know that now. But you also have noticed that business has kind of had some growing pains, particularly from religion. Now, I want to be uber clear about this. This is not a diss against religion. This is simply pointing out that in the early days, and in fact, many would argue today as well, and actually I would argue today as well, depending on the country that we're talking about and so forth, power was religion, religion was power. So you really couldn't, dislink, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. Disattach, there's decouple. There's the word. You could not decouple society and business and religion. They were all coupled, right? You could not decouple them. I'm just so frickin' thrilled that I remembered the word. But things are going to change. Things are going to change a lot. And what we're going to talk about today is kind of what are the various attitudes that religion had toward business in the, early days, 3-4 centuries ago and so forth. We want to understand these because we want to see how they are going to change in the future. So, spoiler alert, right now in our religion is generally anti-business. They see it as immoral and greed and avarice and usury and so forth, where we're about to see where religion is about to become really, really, really pro-business. But that's for next week. So we're going to start here. Okay, so let's play with this. And let's go ahead and get our marker out so we can play with that. All righty. Hey, Jack, Laura, and Lynn, great to have you with us. All right, so I want to, Brooke, I want you to get out a piece of paper. Get out a piece of paper, if you would, or your phone, or a computer, or a hairless cat, something you can write on. And I want to ask you to take some notes on what we're about to discuss, because at the end, I'm going to ask you for examples. So as it says here, soon I'll ask you to give me an example of where you practice one of these attitudes. Okay, so I'm going to say it again. We are going to talk about some early religious attitudes toward business. However, these religious attitudes still persist today, and B, you agree with a lot of them. You practice a lot of these attitudes, all right? I'm going to give you examples in general where these attitudes are practiced. I'll give you examples of where I practice these attitudes toward business that are founded in religion. And I want to ask you where you practice them, right? And in so doing, we're going to get all these bad boys, you know, up there. I'm just going to do this because everybody's been, Scott commented on the buttons. And yeah, my Vampirella right there, that thing's going for $1,400. That's amazing. Okay, we'll talk more about that when we talk about bubbles. All right, we're going to talk about four religious attitudes toward business. And once again, I want to ask you to come up where you agree with these. One attitude toward business is what we call the ascetic attitude. Ascetic means we disavow it. We shun it. Shun, disavow, don't have anything to do with it. So it says here, something over which one must overcome, escape, an unrighteous thing to be eschewed. Okay? Now, I have here a picture of the Amish. That is not a fair picture. I am using that picture incorrectly because the Amish are not ascetic toward business. They are ascetic toward technology. The Amish are great business people, fantastic business people. So it's unfair that I should use that. But it's an example of where they're ascetic toward technology. All right? Well, there are many things in which perhaps we practice asceticism. Think about an aspect of business that you think is unrighteous. We must overcome it, escape from it, eschew it, shun it. Well, let's give some examples. If you use makeup, some people try to use makeup, will only buy makeup that has not been tested on animals. So non-animal tested makeup, all right? That is an example of an ascetic approach to business. You're not saying the business is bad necessarily. You're saying that this particular business practice is bad. Animal testing is a bad practice. Myself, I have gone back and forth on the gig economy. I want to say I have since changed my perspective somewhat, but I want to share with you my ascetic view of the gig economy. The gig economy, of course, is when you're using Uber and DoorDash and Fiverr and Airbnb and so on and so forth. My gripe with the gig economy has been, okay, you have freedom, you can do what you want, so on and so forth, but you've got no social safety net. You're not saving for retirement, you don't have insurance, you don't have disability, you don't have, you get no benefits. You just get straight pay, no benefits, all right? Which saves the company a ton of money. They're not giving it to you. They're giving it to their shareholders. So now, me as a regular employee, I have a retirement plan, I have a health plan, I have disability, I have paid time off, I have rights as a worker. But in the gig economy, you don't have rights as a worker. And the companies frickin' love that. Now, I want to be clear, I have changed my view somewhat, not completely, but somewhat. Nevertheless, I have only used Uber once. It was actually a really good experience. It was a great experience, which bugged the hell out of me because I wanted to be ascetic toward it, right? Now, Adrian here, hang on, why aren't you working? There we go. Adrian says, so like maybe if you're vegan and you won't buy animal products. Yes, okay, that is a great real world example where, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and participate in the market and so forth, but I don't buy animal products. That's an ascetic view, okay? All right, let's continue. Let's continue. Now, here are some modern day examples of ascetic. Were you homeschooled? If you were homeschooled, your parents were disavowing the public schools and saying, we're going to do it ourselves. Do you refuse to shop at Walmart because of their business practices? Then you are ascetic toward Walmart. Do you allow the internet in your home? Do you refuse to buy products that were tested on those wee little cute animals, right? So those are examples of asceticism. Adrian, you had a great example as well with vegan. All right, let's look at number 2. Then we have indifferent. Indifferent is irrelevant and of no concern to righteousness. What this is saying is, listen. There's business and there's religion. They're two separate things. I disagree that they are inextricably linked and that we need to decouple them. They're two separate things. I can be a good, solid business person and I can be a good, solid religious devotee and don't have to worry about the two. So, for example, in The Godfather, the first Godfather movie, there's this awesome scene in which the younger Godfather, what's his name? The one who becomes the Godfather, who didn't want to become. Oh, I forget. He's attending his son's baptism at the same time that he's having a whole bunch of people killed, right? And it's really great because the editing shows the baptism and the killings going back and forth. And in his mind, those are two different worlds, right? Sonny, thank you, Scott. Sonny, that's the one, right? So that's an example of indifferent. And by the way, we'll go ahead and put this in. And then Damien had another great real world example. Yeah. What's going on with Uber and so forth, DoorDash. Yeah, that's going to happen more and more. Good point. Now, this gentleman right here, this is John Willard Marriott Sr. Marriott Maybe you've stayed in a Marriott hotel. I know you know Marriott, right? And this is the man who founded Marriott. And he's a member, or was, he's since passed on, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. And he, in fact, came up with the idea of starting a chain of hotels back when he was serving an LDS mission off in D.C. So his whole life was a solid member of the church. He was devoted, he went to church, he held callings, he paid tithing, whole 9 yards. But you know what you could do at his hotel? You could rent a porno. Yeah, it's just right there on the TV. Pull it up, you could rent it. You get yourself a drink, an alcoholic drink in the restaurant, at the bar. Now, these are things that are totally against the LDS ethos, their values, their morals, and their ethics, and what it means to live a righteous life. But if you go in for indifferent, those are two different things. I can be a devout churchgoer, and I can give my customers what they want, even if it's booze, alcohol, and porn, and still be a good member. That's an example of indifferent, all right? Now, examples that we see of this today. Do you eschew violence but play video games? Me, I abhor violence. I hate violence. I don't want violence of any sort in my life. But oh my gosh, John Wick. Is that like not the best movie ever? And the Avengers and so forth. I love violence in my movies. Oh, I love violence in my movies. Okay? Those are two different things. Real world movies, I can see them separately. Do you espouse environmental issues but still add to the carbon footprint? You drive, eat food that's out of season, meat, etc. Yeah, you could say, listen, I can be environmentalist and still at the same time eat bananas if they're not in season. Those are two different things, all right? So we still practice this today. I do. Where do you practice this? Take a note and we'll see some examples, right? Okay. Class. Number 3, renunciation. Renunciation said, you know, business is something to be fought and reformed as the ultimate religious revolution. So this is when religion is saying, you know, business is actually pretty good and pretty important, but it is immoral the direction it's going right now. We need to take control of business and direct it in the direction that we feel is best for the religious vision that we have for our community. So, for example, this is a picture here kind of talking about the United Order, right? Consecration, stewardship, holiness to the Lord with Joseph and Brigham, Joseph Smith, Brigham Young. This was early in LDS church history, the United Order. I'm going to say it, folks. United Order was plain and simple communism, all right? Everything was held in commune and controlled by the church. And the idea was, it's not that the LDS church didn't believe in business. They totally did. Oh my gosh, did they ever? Still do. And very well, in fact. However, they felt that it was important to take control of it and to kind of control it centrally as a religious entity, right? Now, some of you might be old enough to remember ZCMI, It's not around anymore, but it was the very first department store in American history. Penny's, Sears, Macy's, Nordstrom, they've got nothing. ZCMI was the very first department store in history. ZCMI was the Zion Corporate Mercantile, I forget what ZCMI stood for, but it was all part of the United Order. It's not around anymore, but that's how it started, as a church entity. Okay? So, where do we practice this today? Well, do you use Uber rather than a taxi, or use Airbnb rather than stay at a hotel? In many ways, renunciation is what has given root to the gig economy. The gig economy says, listen. We know that business is important. In fact, we really like business. But all you fat cats up in your glass towers in New York and Chicago making bazillions of dollars off of us, the little people, that crap needs to end. We are going to take control. We are going to start our own taxi, and we are going to be highly disruptive to the old taxis. We are going to start our own hotels, and it's going to be highly disruptive to the old hotels, right? The events that have been going on with GameStop right now, that's classic renunciation. It's not saying we don't dirty ourselves, soil ourselves with stocks. It's we're going to take control and we're going to make it go places that we want it to go, okay? Steve Jobs and Apple would have been part of renunciation. It's not that he didn't love tech. He obviously loved tech. It's that he thought tech could be so much better than what companies like IBM were doing with it. And he was right, okay? Do you live at home with your parents rather than buy a home or rent an apartment? Well, now, the old fogey world says you're supposed to move out when you're 18 and get an apartment, buy a home, and all that sort of stuff. A lot of folks these days are saying, no. Why? Why? Right? Do you do gig work for yourself for part-time income? Right? So, yeah, as Adrian says, basically going against the norm. Yes, going against the norm in many ways for a larger purpose. In the case of the gig economy, and it is to take control, to be entrepreneurial, to take the country and our own income into a more autonomous direction rather than be beholden to somebody bigger, right? Yeah, and reference here, Laura, I think you have a good point. Yeah, totally, right? Change has also changed from what the past was. Absolutely, I agree. Okay, so those are the, here's number 4. I'm holding up 4. Here's number 4. This is the quiet response. Quiet. This is when religion says business is something to be tolerated and where possible amended, a necessary ingredient in bringing about the kingdom of God, but one that cannot be allowed to run amok. Now, here in the state of Utah, and actually, just in case you think Utah has the weirdest and most restrictive liquor laws in the country, not even close. Not even close. There are some weird, funky liquor laws out there. Utah's actually pretty on the normal side. Nevertheless, Utah has decided all liquor stores should be owned by the state. That's religion. Let's face it. More in the past, less so now, but still today as well, but especially in the past, the state was run by the church. It just was, because all the legislators were members of the church, and they all legislated according to the dictates of what they felt was moral and ethical and legal, and that often fell under the auspices of what the church said was moral, ethical, and legal. Less the case now, but still, it's part of it. And so they said, listen, we need liquor. You totally need liquor. You need it. You need it. But we can't allow it to run amok. Amok, 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 amok. Anybody who knows what movie reference that's from gets a point, okay? Yeah, Adam, totally the case. So they're going to say all the liquor stores are owned by the state. That's their way of making sure that stays under control. Well, now, where do we do this? Does your family regulate TV, gaming time, or internet time, right? Oh, you're referencing the liquor laws. Yeah. No, I know you were. Check out Pennsylvania, Adam. Check out Pennsylvania. And we all know that Jack Daniels is made in a dry county. So you can make Jack Daniels in that county, but you can't drink it there, right? So, any case. Okay, back to quiet. Okay, it sounds like they used to, right, Jack? All right, so they used to. The idea is, hey, listen, we need TV, we need gaming, we need internet, but you can't freaking live on it. We're going to regulate the time. That's an example of quiet. Do you drive a hybrid or electric car, making sure that you don't overpollute, right? Now, my wife and I, her car is a hybrid, and that's kind of our way of saying, listen, we have to drive. It's just going to happen. We have to drive. But we can at least do it in a way that we feel helps the environment somewhat. Hey, by the way, did you guys hear that GMC has committed that by 2035, so in 15 years, by 2035, all of GMC's cars and trucks, all their vehicles will be electric. I'm not making this up. Check it out. It's a commitment that they've made, right? Adrian, you're talking about regulations on business. Absolutely, that's what it is, right? So, yeah, now I still drive my BRZ, but I'm indifferent. Remember, I'm indifferent. Yeah. I guess Volvo's doing that too, huh? Hold on. I didn't mean to push that. I hope that didn't mess something up. I just pushed a button I didn't mean to mess up. Does your family hide the chocolate and cookies to be brought out only at certain times? Right? Because, yeah, you need chocolate and cookie in the house, but you can't have it out all the time. So those are examples. So let's check this out. Yeah, days of the Hemi are numbered. Yes, totally. Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's going to be a weird new order. By the way, okay, listen. I just want to, Sara Lee coffee cake. You do it with that. Okay. I just want to diverge for one moment. One time James May was talking with, who's the guy who had the Tonight Show? Leo, gosh. He had the Tonight Show and he's a car nut. Come on, Scott, help me out. He was the host of the Tonight Show for the longest time, and is a total car nut. Gosh, why can't I remember his name? Jay Leno, there we go. Jay Leno, thank you. Everyone, excellent, thank you, Jay Leno. James May and Jay Leno were talking one time, and Jay Leno says, everybody says that the electric car is going to be the death of the internal combustion engine. And he said, that's baloney. He said, in fact, it's going to help car enthusiasts because he said, think about it, in the past when everybody had horses and they were all work horses and so forth, okay, everybody had horses. But even though cars have replaced horses, if you're really into horses, oh, you have these beautiful horses and you can get the space for them and you can get the resources for them and you can belong to clubs and so on and so forth. You can, in fact, be more of a horse enthusiast today than back in the day when horses were ubiquitous. And he says the same thing's going to happen with cars and internal combustion engine cars, race cars and car enthusiasts and so forth. He says there's going to be more care and more attention and more sight given to this hobby. So that was Jay Leno's case for it. Okay, so everyone, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to our little question thing. And this is, when we do this, this is going to totally, fill this out. I want you to feed up some examples of where you practice some of these religious, it doesn't have to be religious, but these are religious attitudes toward business. I just want to help us point out that we're not just looking at the past, at those funny little ignorant people and saying, oh, look at how backwards they were. No, we still do this today. Show me some examples that you guys have thought of. And there it is right there. Okay, you guys are getting some great comments here, but we're just going to max that out and we're going to max this out. And frankly, we're going to max this out too, because these are all real world examples. So you know the drill. Congratulations. You want to go ahead and email me a timestamp. The timestamp is going to be 10:32, right? So you email me 10:32 after the lecture, and I'll take care of you. I always take care of you, right? Okay, let's go ahead and put that in there, by the way, 10:32. All right. Hey, so gosh, let's take a look at some of these. These are good. So yeah, Adam, starting your own business so you don't have to work for the man. Yes, that's a way of being disruptive, right? I like it. Not eating at Chick-fil-A because of their position on LGBTQ. That is a great example of asceticism toward Chick-fil-A. Very good. Same with Tyson Chicken, as Laura says, because of the way they treat their chickens. Let's see, Andrea, Would not support purchasing from fast fashion brands as an aesthetic approach. That is exactly an example of that, right? So, for example, let's say Forever 21, right? Forever 21 is an H&M. These are great examples of fast fashion brand. But the problem with fast fashion is that it fills up landfills like you wouldn't imagine, because you only wear the thing 2 or 3 times at most, and then you buy a new one, right? So yeah, Andrea, you're bang on right there. Let's see here. Boycotting Aquaman 2. Now, is that because of the controversy going on with the actress, the wife of why can't I remember names today? And he's a great actor too. Jack Sparrow and Ninth Gate, and gosh, I can't remember names today. Ridiculous. Instead of investing in the stock market, I've invested in foreign exchange renunciation. Yes, I agree with that, Adrian. That is an example. Izzy says, this is about my friend. She deleted her network account once to show when Cuties came out. She hasn't downloaded it since. Yes, a lot of people will discontinue an account or something as a show of renunciation or ascetic, depending on why you did that. Great example. Scott won't use DoorDash. Johnny Depp. There we go. Yes, Amber. Okay, I figured it was because of the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp controversy. Yeah. And by the way, I'm embarrassed that I know what that controversy is. I don't normally go in for that sort of stuff. I don't truck with what's hip and so forth. But when it comes to my superheroes, I know that stuff. Not going to SeaWorld. Yes, great example, Andrea. Yeah. And then we have an agreement here. We're going to go ahead and put that in there. Gosh. Lots of great examples. Stop buying from companies who were involved in violations to work at human rights and factories. Yes, great examples. Guys, I mean, triple tens. You're on fire. That is impressive. That is Thank you very much for participating in this. You clearly thought about it. You were clearly paying attention and internalizing it for yourself. This is what education is all about. Not just can you recite back do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's think about it in terms of your own self, how you live in the community, how you express yourself through business and so forth. Because business is like one of the major ways in which we express ourselves, and we should do so in a way that's consistent with our own values, our own morals, and our own ethics. And you guys clearly have done that. Thank you very much. And so with that, we're going to take just a few moments and gear ourselves up for what we're going to be talking about next week. Religion, remember, they kept kind of pounding away that there are, in fact, some ways, acceptable ways to earn money, right? You know what they are. They loved labor. Oh, labor was so wonderful and fantastic. It's honorable. It's noble. You're asserting yourself into a product, expressing yourself through that product. They love it. Trade, okay. We kind of recognize that trade is necessary. You have more, I have less. I have more, you have less. Let's trade and we can increase value. Necessary, but be careful, right? That sort of thing. Okay. Whereas finance, remember, they hated finance. Oh, they hated finance, right? So if you look at these pictures, yeah, labor is totally noble. Trade, all right, maybe a little slimy, but you got to do it. Whereas Wolf of Wall Street, unethical from every way, shape, and form. We are going to see this change. we are going to see this change. But just remember, this is what the religious powers of the day were kind of asserting. By the way, here's a quote from the reading. When it comes to trade being perilous for the soul, it is not disputed, of course, that trade is indispensable. The merchant supplements the deficiencies of one country with the abundance of another. Their profits, therefore, are legitimate, and they may include not only the livelihood appropriate to the trader's status, but payment for labor, skill, and risk. So remember, they were just banging on and on about, hey, if we're meeting deficiencies of one country with surpluses in other countries, and so long as you're making enough money to just simply earn a decent living and to compensate you for your labor, it's okay. It's when it gets more than that that things get really greedy, right? Because what religion was really concerned about was lying, dishonesty, bribery, scandal, things like that, right? Now let me show you why this is not as clear-cut as you might think. Definition of lying. I know you know the definition, but bear with me. To offer a false statement made with deliberate intent to deceive, an intentional untruth, a falsehood, intentionally convey a false impression. Now, you guys know that. And my guess, if I were to ask, is lying bad? You'd go, yeah, of course lying's bad. It's prima facie bad. You don't deceive, deliberate intent, untruth, falsehood, convey false impression. That's no good. Well, here's the thing, though. When it comes to business, is lying okay? Well, here's the thing. And let me go back. Let's talk about bluffing. Is bluffing lying or is it game strategy? Now, let's first define it, right? Bluff, to deceive someone regarding one's abilities or intention. Now, here we have a British statesman. His name's Henry Taylor, British statesman. He says something really interesting. He says, falsehood ceases to be a falsehood when it is understood on all sides that the truth is not expected to be spoken. If you don't expect the person to tell you the truth, then when they lie, it's not a lie because you didn't expect the truth in the first place. Now, it's interesting, right? Adrian, you're right. Let's play with this. This is from a philosopher. Her name is Carr. I want to read this. This is not in your reading, but I find it hugely interesting and something upon which we should meditate, right? In their office lives, business people, in their office lives, business people cease to be private citizens. They become game players who must be guided by a somewhat different set of ethical standards. Now, you know the game poker, right? Poker's brand of ethics is different from the ethical ideas of civilized human relationships. The game calls for distrust of other fellow. It ignores the claim of friendship. Cunning deception by concealment of one's strength and intentions, not kindness and open-heartedness, are vital in poker. No one thinks any worse of poker on that account. And no one should think any worse of the game of business because its standards of right and wrong differ from the prevailing tradition of moral society. I find that mind-blowing. So what this ethicist is saying is, listen, poker's a game. Poker's a game. We expect people to hide their intentions. We expect people to hide their strengths. We expect them to try to deceive us and to try to misguide us. And we expect zero truth in these interactions. And furthermore, we do it with friends. And they're still our friends, even after they lied and deceived and so on and so forth, right? That's just part of the game. Well, what this person is saying is business is the same way. We hide our weaknesses. We exaggerate our strengths. We show just enough to get what we want, but conceal everything else. Now, before you decide that that's bad, I just want you to think of a job interview. A job interview is kind of like a game of poker. You're trying to show your best hand. You're trying to cover your weaknesses. You want to put your best foot forward, and you're hoping they do not ask you questions that you cannot morally and ethically answer in professional honesty without giving away a weakness, right? It's the whole fake it till you make it. It works. It works. By the way, I'm an old dude. I'm 55 years old, and I've got news for you. Fake it till you make it is not only correct, I'm still faking it, right? I'm trying to accentuate my strengths. I'm trying to hide my weaknesses. And I don't necessarily want to deceive you, but I definitely want you to come on board. And I'm going to show and do everything I can to help you come on board and hide those things that I have less qualification in. It's interesting, right? In any case, Adrian says it's a dog-eat-dog world, right? Both parties benefit. Yeah. So you're right. You're right. Now, this is the thing that religion is concerned about, and we're going to end on this. It's a question of avarice, for it was the essence of trade to drag into a position of solitary prominence the acquisitive appetites toward those appetites. In other words, here's what religion was concerned about. They're saying, listen, you've already given a cogent point that lying and deception is not only okay in business, it should be accepted and embraced. And now everybody's going to be greedy, and they're going to be more lying. There's going to be more lying and more deception. Business was just super nervous about all this. I mean, religion. Religion was just super nervous about all this. And so that's why they have these various approaches to it. But when we come back next week, it's all going to change. And to me, oh my gosh, I'm going to just keep geeking out next week. It's amazing how it changes. And it's amazing why it changes. And it's going to change in ways that affect you today. Not just occasionally, but in how you live your life every moment of the day. We're about to decipher a lot of the drivers that drive your behavior on a daily basis next week. So I'm looking forward to that, right? Okay, I agree with you, Adrian. I agree with you. Or at least I like to think that I live in a world where that's the case, right? Everyone, have a fantastic rest of the week. If you have a 3-day weekend, I don't know if you do because of work and so forth, but if you do, enjoy your 3-day weekend. And we will see you all again a week from today on Wednesday. All right? Have a fantastic rest of the week, and we'll talk to you again soon. We'll see you.